Good morning, everybody. How are we doing? My name is Scott. That is Bo. There is no co-pilot in the co-pilot seat today, which is the 20th day of July, 2022. It is bright and early, about 7:15 in the morning. Tampa, Florida. It looks, by looking out the window, my ever growing skills as a meteorologist. I look out the window and say, it's mostly sunny and 77 degrees. How are you? Today we're going to talk about evidence. We're going to talk about the great insurgency of 1/6. What I called the Velvet Rope Rebellion. And I called it that in a video on the 10th of January 2021. The ridiculous Velvet Rope Rebellion. And I knew back then that it would be a big deal because of how the reporters were trying to report on the video they were watching when it was happening live as if they were watching the Hindenburg crash. But what you were watching was a bunch of people, everyday working class people, walking through the Hall of Statues with their cell phones, like tourists, in between two velvet ropes. Hence, the Velvet Rope Rebellion of 21. Now, you might ask yourself, Scott, you're fucking slipping. You might say, Scott, you're slipping. You might say, you're slipping so bad because you got the wrong fucking picture up. That's a picture of a global hawk. More specifically, that's a picture of a global hawk from the Dresden Research Center. Dryden, not Dresden, Dryden. I had to check. What the heck has that possibly got to do with the insurgency of 1/6? It's got a lot to do with it. It's got a lot to do with it. People out there who were saying, God damn, we got to hold these fuckers accountable. This is outrageous. This is unbelievable. What's going on now? We've got to hold these people accountable. Not the ones who were rioting, but the ones who brought them there. The ones who fucking set the whole thing up. The ones who opened the fucking doors. The ones who knew it was going to happen before it happened so that they could create in the minds of the people the illusion of the insurgency of 1/6. You say, we've got to hold these people accountable. Why? Because if you don't, they will do it again. Like any criminal. Like any bad behavior of a child. If you do not fucking stop that behavior, if the child doesn't understand their consequences, the child will continue with the same behavior. That holds true for children. That holds true for dogs. That holds true for people like myself. We all have to come to understand there are consequences. And when there aren't, the bad behavior continues. So you say to yourself, we've got to hold them accountable. I say to you, we should have a long time ago. Let me break this down for you. Specifically, I'm bringing up the insurgency of 1/6. Not because Alex Jones, not because Alex Jones's wife or ex-wife now says she has key information that can prove he's fucking evil or whatever the fuck she's coming up with. Not because of fucking Steve Bannon, no. Because, unfortunately, for the powers that be, and of course CNN and all the others, Secret Service provided a single text exchange to IG after request for many records. That is a lead story on CNN today. It is vastly incomplete, but I am going to read a little chip of it for you, just so you know. Even in the bullshit mainstream media, a little truth is popping out from nowhere. Let me read up to here for you, shall I? CNN today. The Secret Service was only able to provide a single text exchange to the Department of Homeland Security Inspector General, who had requested a month's worth of records for 24 single Secret Service personnel, according to a letter to the House Select Committee investigating January 6, 2021, and obtained by CNN. The revelation provides insight into the concern raised in a recent letter to Congress by the Inspector General, who accused the agency of not retaining records needed for the January 6 investigation. Let me stop for a second. That's not really what happened. They didn't retain records. They destroyed records. They destroyed records. They destroyed records. Continuing. Inspector General Joseph Kufari, already having received an initial batch of documents including hundreds of thousands of disclosures of agency documents, radio communications, emails, briefings, and interviews, requested in June of 2021 text messages sent and received by 24 Secret Service personnel between December 7th, 2020 and January 8th, 2021. 1 month's time. According to the letter, the details of which had not previously been reported, the letter does not identify the 24 personnel. Quote, the Secret Service submitted the responsive records it identified, namely one single text message conversation from former U.S. Capitol Chief Stephen Sund to former Secret Service Uniform Division Chief Thomas Sullivan, requesting assistance on January 6, 2021, and advising the agency did not have any further records responsive to the DHS OIG's request for text messages. Assistant Director Ronald Rowe wrote in the letter to the January 6 committee. One exchange between, I'm stopping for a second, one exchange between two people who are no longer in their respective positions. Continuing with the CNN article. Representative Zoe Lofgren, a California Democrat who's a member of the Select Committee, said in an interview with MSNBC earlier Tuesday that the panel had received, quote, one text message, end quote, that she hadn't yet seen, but the panel would be, quote, pursuing more information as a committee soon, end quote. Quote, in their letter, they gave no indication they have secured phones in question and done some forensic work with them. That's something we want to know, Lofgren said. This doesn't look good. Coincidences can happen, but we really need to get, that should be it. That's our motto. That's our national motto now. Now that we are a failed state and we rule by crisis, we should just have, not in God we trust on our money. It should be coincidences can't happen, because God knows they are fucking piling up now. She went on to say coincidences can happen, but we really need to get to the bottom of this and get a lot more information than we currently have. End quote. That's CNN's version of this. ABC has a slightly more, honest. Have a listen to this. Once again, freedom. I'm able to use this because this is a I'm doing news and evaluating the news. So ergo, this is under fair use. YouTube. Have a listen.
Major development in the January 6th investigation. That development,
for some reason, he's laughing.
Is that the Secret Service deleted a large number of text messages on its devices from January 5th and 6th. That's according to a government watchdog group. Lawmakers are now raising some serious concerns, and our congressional correspondent Rachel Scott has the very latest for us this morning. Hello there, Rachel.
TJ, good morning. Yes, lawmakers say this is deeply concerning. The Inspector General, an independent watchdog with the Department of Homeland Security, says that the Secret Service not only deleted many text messages around the time of January 6th, but that they did it after his office requested them.
Oh, no. Not, oh my goodness, all they provided was a single thing of records. No, bullshit. They deleted, they physically destroyed the fucking evidence, not just physical evidence that they knew was going to be incriminating. They deleted that shit after it was asked for by the Inspector General. That's a slightly different story than what CNN's telling you, but that's ABC, so there you go. Oh yeah, they deleted that shit. They said, oh, this don't look good, gone. This looks bad, gone. This looks real bad, gone. And speaking of gone, let me tell you something else, dude. Let me show you something else. Yeah, I had a bunch of stuff. Here we go. On the subject. I had to dig this stuff up. This is January 10th, 2021. The rebranding of the Velvet Rope Rebellion has begun. Video not available. You know why? Gone. My shit was deleted by YouTube. That being my second channel that had reached about 3,400 subscribers. Gone. Gone. Rebranding of the Velvet Rope Rebellion has begun. 2 agent provocateurs at Ashley Babbitt shooting scene. And that was on, what day was that? January 13th or January 12th? January 13th. So yeah, they get rid of evidence. They clean up evidence, man. They are all about that. They destroy that fucking evidence as quick as they can. If you talk about the evidence they want to destroy, they'll wipe out your shit. They will definitely do that. That's one of the Ashley Babbitt one's my second most viewed with 2,500 views. There's another video where I found a third agent provocateur at that scene. Coincidences will happen. Where is that? Where's that lovely quote? There you go. We can change it slightly. Coincidences will happen. Yes, indeedy, boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen. They deleted those fucking files after they were asked for because they knew if they came out, if they were exposed, the entire thing that they had manufactured, the crisis that they had manufactured, which would be used for all sorts of draconian things in the future, namely shaming people or making them afraid of speaking out against what's going on. The whole reason they fucking did it would be lost because people would understand that it was manufactured, and those people who were walking peacefully through the fucking rotunda and then through the fucking hall of statues, those people were being used. And the Ali guy, the guy who used to go by the fucking the Muslim guy who was a fucking asset to the deep state back then became Ali Alexander and was an asset to the deep state during this. He was a fucking asset. Jones was a fucking asset. That woman out of fucking South Carolina who was a former special operations person running special operations campaigns in other countries, who put a bunch of money down and put some buses on people on buses and shipped them up to fucking D.C. to be involved in that She was an asset. Of course, that guy who was running around telling everybody, big guy, you know what I'm talking about, who was saying, we got to go in there, we got to go into the building. And all the people around him were chanting, Fed, 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 Fed. He was a fucking asset. And of course, obviously, some of the fucking Capitol Police who opened the doors and then ushered them in and were acting like they were running away for their lives when they were just leading the dudes up the stairs, and they just happened to have a professional photographer there to film the whole thing. He was a fucking asset. All the ones who pretended to cry and weep while giving testimony in fucking Congress, they were all fucking assets. And of course, Secret Service. The Secret Service would have to know what was going to happen. Period. They have to know. Why? Because they're the ones in control of certain people they had to keep out of the way. You understand? So they had to know what was going to happen. And hence their text messages would have reflected that. Now, of the 24 that they wanted text messages from, I guess because those 24 were clearly within the area, at least they knew those 24 were within the area at the time. Of those 24, do they all have incriminating text messages that they knew something was going to happen on the insurgency of 1/6? Probably not. However, you can't give away 13 and then refuse the other fucking 11. So we'll give you these 13 guys text messages, but we can't give you the 11. That doesn't work that way. Why not? Obviously, then those fucking 11 people, you pay real close attention to them. So they can't give you any. Now, I know. I went to fucking, when I went to trial alongside with fucking Alex Jones during the whole disclosure thing, which is where we are with this back in June of last year, when they were asking for it, the IG was asking for it. Judges, they don't accept that. They don't accept that. Oh, I don't have it. I had to get fucking software to download my information from this. I had to get software to download information from my YouTube, from my Twitter, and tried my best to find a way to get the fucking stuff back from WordPress, which had been erased. They don't put up with that shit. And if you don't turn that stuff over, you're in contempt of court. Now, I'm sure they're in contempt of Congress and have been in contempt of Congress, but no one fucking questions that shit. Why? Because that's the establishment doing what the establishment does, covering their shit up. I say that with fucking evidence. I don't just make this shit the fuck up, boys and girls. Hillary Clinton deleted 33,000 emails on her private email server. Why? Because those 33,000 emails would have implicated her in all kinds of fucking crimes and implicated us and our business interests overseas while she was State Department. She had to delete them. And of course, James Comey and all these people covered for her. Bernie Sanders eventually came out and said, I don't want to hear about no more emails. Because he was sheepdogging for her. We don't care. That's fucking major criminal activity. And people running around saying, you'd still have the right to an abortion if you had just shut up and voted for Hillary. That's major criminal activity. And she didn't accidentally, by coincidence, have a private email server, which was illegal. She did it so she could delete those fucking 33,000 emails if anybody ever fucking asked for them. That's why she had the private email server. Deleted fucking evidence. Hey, where are those emails? I'm sorry, I deleted them. Oh, well. Oh, well. Nothing happened to her. 2005, 2006, it became clear that Gina Haspel gave the fucking authorization, demanded that the interrogation tapes of Zacharias Moussaoui and Abu Zubaydah were deleted, were erased, were burned, were gone. Even though the 9/11 Commission directly asked for them because they wanted to see exactly what happened and exactly where this information from the CIA about September 11th came from. They were denied access to these fucking suspects who were being held. They asked to be able to ask them questions directly. No. They asked to see videotape of the interrogations. No. They asked to have fucking questions answered by them on videotape for the fucking inquiry into September 11th by the United States Congress. No. They were told by the CIA and the CIA director at the time that they could put together a list of questions and they would get a typed response from the interrogators representing what the fucking suspects said, and that they would not be signed. And that, boys and girls, is your understanding of what happened on September 11th, 2001. That's what it's based on. They destroyed the fucking evidence. Is this sounding at all familiar? Is this sounding like maybe a pattern? Is it? Or am I crazy? Quote, April 3rd, 2014, Senate Select Committee on Intelligence voted to send the findings and conclusions and the executive summary of its final study on the CIA's detention and interrogation program to the President for declassification and subsequent public release. The action marked the culmination of a monumental effort that officially began with the committee's decision to initiate the study in March 2009, but which had its roots in the investigation into the CIA's destruction of videotapes of CIA detainee interrogations that began in December of 2007. They destroyed their videotapes. Once again, more tapes were destroyed. Had its roots in an investigation into the CIA's destruction of tapes that began in 2007. These are different tapes. These are tapes of other motherfuckers that we tortured. Are we seeing a pattern? Evidence grows of Enron cover-up. Enron, if you guys remember Enron, that was the biggest fucking graft, insider trading, market rigging, Kenneth Lay, all these motherfuckers, including George Bush, George H.W. Bush, and George W. Bush. Massive rigging of the energy industry in fucking California. At the expense of the people, at the expense of the investors, and at the expense of the U.S. taxpayers, because U.S. taxpayers had to eventually end up footing the bill. We're talking massive, massive graft and theft. And what happened to it? All the evidence was destroyed. All the evidence was destroyed. We're talking billions of fucking dollars. Billions of dollars. So we have, yes, of course, we have this one. Where they're destroying evidence, 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 we have this one. Where they're destroying evidence. That's just from 2001 on. This being the oldest, where they destroyed the evidence. But is it? I guess by that, you know, when I say that. It isn't.
Pentagon, the day before 9/11, Secretary of Defense Donald Rumsfeld declared war, not on foreign terrorists.
The adversary is closer to home. It's the Pentagon bureaucracy.
He said money wasted by the military poses a serious threat.
In fact, it could be said that it's a matter of life and death.
Rumsfeld promised change, but the next day, the world changed. And in the rush to fund the war on terrorism, the war on waste seems to have been forgotten.
It was not waste. What Donald Rumsfeld announced on September the 10th, 2001, was $2.3 trillion missing from the Pentagon budget. He put in charge of the team investigating it one of the guys, one of the neocons, who was also one of the vultures. And the vultures were the vultures. It's Vulcans, not vultures, but I call them vultures. That was Condoleezza Rice and George P. Shultz's team to make ready for the transition to a George W. Bush presidency that started in 1999, 1998, late 1998, early 1999, the transition team. Bunch of fucking neocons. Ended up all over the Bush administration, especially after 9/11. And remarkably, those vultures, their names keep popping up everywhere around 9/11. It's almost as if. So he put in charge of that assembly of accountants and investigators and all these people to find out what happened to the $2.3 trillion that's missing from the Pentagon budget. And he used that as an excuse to go after bureaucracy so he could privatize the Pentagon even more. That's what he did. And his declaration of war against the bureaucracy of the Pentagon really would have been massive fucking news with or without the $2.3 trillion, because basically he was saying what the Pentagon has done before is crazy. We got to privatize, and without that we wouldn't have had all the mistakes of the past. He was fucking flipping the bird to all the fucking leadership of the Pentagon in the past. So it would have been a big news, big story. And it was a big story for about 12 hours. Coincidences can't happen. Would you like another coincidence? I'll give you one. Let me get back to the... What? What, Scott? What are you talking about? What the fuck has that got to do with what we're talking about here? What's that got to do with 1/6? Here's an article I wrote on September 11th, 2009. It's called Strange Bedfellows. Architects and Engineers for 9/11 Truth, the Drone Industry, and Dwayne Dietz. This is the Wayback Machine's version, because, like other evidence in the past, it was destroyed when they wiped out my website. Luckily, a bunch of people, as you can see up here, over the years, saved it for me, and I thank them. What's interesting is there's a whole bunch of stuff going into the drone study. Who is Dwayne Dietz? Dwayne Dietz popped up in the 9/11 Truth thing, of Pilots for 9/11 Truth, and said, yes, I know a bunch about flying. I'll tell you what happened. And he was a leader, a thought leader in the truth movement for a while. Turns out, you see this? Dryden Flight Research Center. That's with NASA. That's the public-private partnership that made these with your tax dollars in order to hand them over to Northrop Grumman so they could produce them and make money off of them. Your tax dollars paid for them to develop this for these guys. That's how democracy works, right? Fuck that socialism shit. That's how democracy works. Well, Dwayne Dietz ran the Dryden Flight Research Center. One of the things that they developed, obviously, aside from the drones, was a little project called HIMAT. HIMAT was used and developed also at the Dryden Flight Research Center. And Dwayne Dietz participated in it. He wasn't in charge of it back then. But HIMAT was the ability to use remote control system to fly jumbo jets. Why? Because they needed to be able to crash them in order to test fuel additives that would make fuel burn slower upon impact of a crash, maybe saving lives. Among programs Dietz had been associated with at Dryden during his NASA career are the F-8 digital fly-by-wire aircraft, the X-29 forward swept wing technology demonstrator aircraft, the X-16 advanced fighter technology integration aircraft, and the highly maneuverable aircraft technology aircraft, HIMAT. He helped develop it, and this is an early sketch of how it would work. Here is your jumbo jet, here is the thing that actually flies it, or here's the thing that actually flies it by remote, and this is how it works. They had to develop this so that they could crash a jet, several jets, over and over again without killing the pilots. Pretty simple, straightforward, right? That ended up not only helping to lead to the development of the drone program, but also to programs by which are now in fucking many commercial airlines, if not all of them. I remember not too long ago, pilots were saying they wanted no part of these things in their planes, because obviously they could go wrong, something could happen, or some nefarious actor could find a way to hack into them and do something terrible with them. As a matter of fact, 6 months prior to September 11th, 2001, there was a pilot show for a TV show, The Lone Gunman or some shit. It was a spinoff from The X-Files with those three guys. You know what the plot of that was, basically? Mulder was on a fucking plane. It was a commercial plane. It was hijacked. People were gassed. They were put to sleep. It was hijacked by remote. And they were flying towards the World Trade Centers. And they were able to save the day and save Mulder by hacking the hacking and return control of the plane. And instead of hitting one of the Twin Towers, he turned the plane this way and went through the plane to some shit like that. That's literally on television 5 months prior to 9/11. Just a little tidbit of info for you. So, Dwayne Dietz, a guy who helped develop these, a guy who helped develop these, practically has his name on that one, and a guy who helped develop this technology, HIMAT, retires after 9/11, and then for some reason decides he's going to jump into the 9/11 Truth Movement. And one of the most important truthiness things he's going to tell people is, of course, that 757 hit the fucking Pentagon. Can I show you something else? Why are we talking about all that crazy stuff, Scott? That's got nothing to do. Really? Quote. Part 4, The Human Cost. September 10th, 2001, Donald Rumsfeld announced $2.3 trillion was missing from the Pentagon budget. On September 11th, 2001, the Pentagon suffered a direct hit. As it just so happens, that hit took place right in the offices of the accounting departments where they're pouring through the records, finding out where that money went. And this was the result. Carrie was a civilian budget analyst. Angela was an accountant. Carolyn was a budget analyst. Jimmy was an accountant. Peggy was an accountant. Brenda was a budget analyst. David was a civilian budget analyst. Samantha was a budget analyst. Shelley was a budget analyst. Patricia was a financial manager for the Defense Department. Odessa was a budget analyst. Martha was a budget analyst. Cecilia was an accounting technician. Robert was a civilian budgetary supervisor. Marjorie was a budget program analyst. Antoinette was a budget analyst. Edna was a budget analyst. Sharon was an accountant for the U.S. Army. Ada was an accountant for the U.S. Army. Cortez Guy was a budget analyst for the Department of the Army. Brenda worked in budgeting and accounting for the Army. Ron for the Office for Deputy Chief Staff of Personnel. A senior analyst for the Pentagon was Angela. Robert was a civilian budget analyst for the Army. Molly was a civilian budget analyst for the Army. Ted was a program manager for information management. He was the one using the computers to dig through it and find the evidence and find what happened to the trillions of dollars. Diana was a staff accountant for the Office of the Secretary of Army. Do you see a pattern developing here? These, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, were not passengers on the quote-unquote plane. These were people who were working in the office, the one office of the massive fucking building that the plane did a 270-degree turn, banking turn, while in full descent from 36,000 feet at 500 miles an hour to hit what? That little hole right there, and shoot all the way across, killing all of those people I just described to you, and destroying all of the evidence of the missing $2.3 trillion fucking dollars. Coincidences can happen, boys and girls. And that's a big one. That's the path of the damage to the Pentagon that took place on September the 11th, 2001. And it just so happened that that's the office it hit. That massive fucking plane flying at 500 miles an hour without leaving a single scratch on the grass hit the first floor office. After a 270-degree, tight, winding, descending fucking turn. And hit it with such precision that it wiped out all the fucking records. All the records of that investigation. At the same time killing all of those people I just named to you. And more. And more. That, ladies and gentlemen, is why I had that up there. That is the ultimate method by which they destroyed evidence and kicked off their global war of terror. Very profitable global war of terror in the process. Long history. And I'm just scratching the surface. I'm really just scratching the surface. There's a long history of destroying critical evidence, crucial evidence, that has been requested by senators, by investigative committees, by investigative the investigative general of whatever, the IG's office. Long history of destroying evidence. This is just one more. But I bring this up because all the way through, all the way from September 11th to what happened with Enron, to, of course, what happened with Hillary, all the way fucking through, and of course all the destruction of the goddamn evidence that the CIA destroyed and no one ever did anything about. What happened to Gina Haspel? She's the one who fucking gave the order to destroy the goddamn videotapes of torturing those two suspects, where your fucking 9/11 story comes from, by the way. And what happened to her? She was promoted in the failed state. With no accountability, boys and girls. Bad behavior continues. It's a simple fact. It is a law of physics. Of course, what happened to the laws of physics on September 11th? Different story. But this is a law of physics. If there is no accountability, bad behavior will continue and get worse. Now, everything I showed you leading up to the Dresden Flight Research Center and that cover-up, it wasn't getting worse. That was obviously the worst and the most ruthless way to cover up that evidence and destroy that evidence. But of course, that was something else entirely. They had a different plan entirely. They just decided to kill two birds with one stone, so to speak, or several birds with one stone. If there is no fucking accountability, then this stuff will continue endlessly. We're not talking about a slap of a wrist on one dude or two dudes or some fucking fall guy. There has to be accountability. Will there be? No, of course not. So you can expect this again. I am not surprised that they destroyed the evidence. I would have been surprised if they hadn't, to be honest. And yes, it is clear that in the text messages between those fucking Secret Service agencies, they knew something more than a speech was going to happen on January 6, 2021. And they were making ready for it. And in all likelihood, they might have known that people, or at least implied, or even discussed plans to let certain people have access to certain places so that they could be filmed. And the whole Velvet Rope Rebellion could be born. This story will have traction for a day or so, and then it'll be gone because something else will happen. Because they rule by crisis. And they can't sit around and wait for coincidences. Coincidences can happen. They can. but they don't. Not when they are needed. When that happens, they're not coincidences. I thank you for your time.